A woman heads out one morning to do her work as a visiting home healthcare nurse. Later that afternoon, her employer cannot find her. Reported missing, police begin a search. Then, a break in the case, as an intuitive officer discovers her vehicle parked 1 mile away. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the New York Times best-selling author of dozens of true crime books. I've dedicated the past 26 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. A few days before Halloween in 2023, near 2 p.m., a Willimantic, Connecticut police dispatcher puts out a call for any available officer near downtown. Officer Luke Gilmet, who is out on the road doing his normal patrols, answers. Willimantic is an old industrial textile town surrounded by rolling hills, streams, and farms. There's a small, thriving Main Street area downtown, which has seen some revitalization of late. People are out and about once again, eating in the restaurants, shopping, and enjoying the parks and Riverwalk. I've lived in Connecticut all my life. Willimantic has always had this reputation as being a magnet for hardcore crime, except that is actually not true. It's a construct. A reputation still hanging on from the mid to late 20th century, when there was a massive economic shift in the region and crime ran rampant. Today, however, Willimantic hovers near the below-average national crime numbers in many categories. There is a major drug issue in town, hardcore stuff like opioids and heroin, which brings with it a certain amount of property theft and additional felonious crimes. But overall, violent crime in town is extremely low, according to the latest crime data. Eastern Connecticut State College overlooks Main Street and routinely receives a spot in the top 25 safest colleges in America. The city's reputation precedes itself, however, if you were to ask anyone who has lived in Connecticut for an extended period. I guess the lesson I learned here is don't believe everything you hear. Dispatch gets hold of Officer Gilmet and says, "We have a woman requesting a wellness check on an employee, a female, 63 years old, a visiting nurse, who we have not been able to get hold of after discovering that she has missed several client-patient appointments." Gilmet says he'll check it out, adding that he's close by. The address is 106 Chapman Street. The house, an old ranch with a closed-in front porch, sitting up on a small piece of land with a stone wall out front, is just on the outskirts of downtown. The woman who made the call is certain the female is still at the house because she tracked her iPhone with the Find My app. You know what that is. You go on the phone, check someone's location. She explains that the address is the location of the nurse's first client of the day. It's clear she showed up on time, but for some reason, she hasn't left that house, and she isn't answering her phone or responding to texts. That visiting nurse, Joyce Grayson, grew up one of 13 children on a dairy farm in Sterling, Connecticut, which is about a 30 to 40-minute drive directly east of Willimantic. Recently, Joyce has been living in Brooklyn, Connecticut, which is a bit shorter drive heading east towards the Rhode Island border. She had graduated from Killingly High School, attended nursing school at Wyndham Tech, and eventually became a licensed practical nurse. Happily married with 6 children of her own, Joyce has spent the past 26 years as a dedicated nurse working for the state of Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. There is no way to count how many people whose lives she has affected and changed and helped. Beyond that, Joyce and her husband had fostered children for 2 decades. Such a deeply passionate person whose focus in life is centered on helping those in need. There is no one who knew Joyce who would not call her one of the most gracious people they have ever met. Heading into her later years, it only made sense to Joyce to go into visiting home health and roam about the county, doing her work, helping people in their own environments. The home Joyce visited that morning was actually a transitional halfway house, where men who had gotten out of jail or prison could ease their way back into society under a certain amount of restriction. Underline certain amount. They call it a REACH house, the acronym referring to Reentry Assisted Community Housing, run by a nonprofit, which also provided case management services for men looking to move on from committing crimes and become productive members of society. REACH itself boasts that its services reduce recidivism to high-risk individuals by providing them with direction and treatment. Ex-cons who are eligible for parole and probation but are unable, for whatever reason, to find affordable or adequate housing on their own. Just like the man Joyce Grayson had visited that morning. Willimantic Dispatch tells Officer Gilmet that the client Joyce was visiting there on Chapman is a 39-year-old man named Michael Carlos Reese, who had just been released from prison a few months ago. Joyce, working now as a home behavioral health nurse, had driven over there, had obviously made it inside the house, but no one had been able to get hold of her for nearly 8 hours now. And this alone was so unlike Joyce to go quiet and miss several appointments, her boss tells the police. When Officer Gilmet pulls up to the residence, he is told by dispatch that Joyce drives a 2023 Sonata. As he parks, he doesn't see any sign of her vehicle. He then gets out and knocks on the front door. Waiting and waiting, nobody answers. He knocks on the back door and all of the side windows around the house. But it appears nobody is home. Back inside his cruiser, Gilmet gets hold of the woman from Joyce's company, New England Home Care, who had phoned into the police department asking for that wellness check. I last spoke to her around 7:45 this morning, she says before correcting herself after checking her phone. Actually, she adds, we texted at 7:20 and 7:27, and she told me she was on her way over to Chapman Street. I had family members check her home, and she's not there either. As of 11:42 a.m., she continues, Joyce's Find My app on her iPhone shows her at that Chapman Street address. But now it's after 2 p.m. Her phone is no longer able to be located on the app. The Find My app had stopped working at that 11:42 a.m. hour. Joyce's scheduled client at the house, Michael Reese, has been out of prison on parole and is still on probation. So, Officer Gilmet gets hold of Reese's probation officer. He has an ankle bracelet, the probation officer explains. It updates where he is every 10 minutes. He also says that the ankle bracelets they use are tamper-proof. Yeah, okay. Gilmet asks him to check Reese's location. After a few minutes, the probation officer comes back and says he should be at 106 Chapman Street now, according to the data from the anklet. Strange, because no one seems to be home, or Michael Reese is inside and not answering the door, which of course is very troublesome. Guillemette decides to conduct a canvass of the surrounding area. He heads down Chapman and comes to Main Street. In front of him is a family dollar store. He pulls in and begins driving around the parking lot slowly. Scanning the cars, he comes up on a red Sonata with license plates registered to Joyce. He's found her vehicle. Guillemette calls it in, and several Willimantic police officers arrive and secure the scene. The officer then heads into the Family Dollar and asks them for any surveillance footage from the parking lot where Joyce's car is parked. How long has the vehicle been there? And was Joyce driving? The video can answer those questions at least. I always say that investigating missing people is as simple, at least in the initial stages, as connecting the dots, which Officer Guillemette is doing an excellent job of. Use your instinct and allow it to guide you towards your next step. I commend the guy. This could have gone a different way if a cop came along and decided that, well, hey, Joyce is an adult and she will turn up sooner or later. No need to be concerned right now. Immediately, Guillemette has a bad feeling that something is terribly wrong, and he explores that gut instinct pulling him along. As Guillemette is preparing to look at the video, that probation officer he spoke to just a while back phones him. They have additional information. We believe Michael Reese's anklet has been tampered with. We got an alert. There you go. The tamper-proof anklet has been tampered with. Criminals, we all know, will find a way to exploit anything they can. To say a device is tamper-proof is ridiculous and becomes a challenge to a criminal. Guillemette runs to his vehicle, then drives as fast as he can back up the road to 106 Chapman. As he pulls into the driveway, he can see a man fitting Reese's description coming out of the back door, heading towards the Willimantic bike path, which is behind the house just beyond the edge of the yard. You are not free to leave at this time, Guillemette tells Reese as he approaches him. Reese turns and stares. Do you have any weapons on you? Guillemette asks. Reese comes across as dumpy and awkward and disheveled. He's bald except for a thin layer of tightly cropped hair around the back of his head. He sports a mangy gray and black beard and wears large-framed glasses. He's stocky and overweight. Staring at Guillemette, he has a look on his face. Reese also comes across a bit subdued and erratic, nervous and twitchy. I have a knife, Reese says. Let's take our first break here. When we come back, we'll get into where police find Joyce Grayson and if Michael Reese is hiding anything else besides busting out of his tamper-proof ankle bracelet. You are listening to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps, a true crime podcast. I'd like to let you know I have a new book out, the first book I've published in 5 years. It's called They Came for Blood. I have always wanted to write Westerns, a dream since my childhood. Tom Callahan was once President Ulysses S. Grant's deadliest kept secret, a lethal gun for hire leading a team of assassins nobody knew existed. Now those days are over. Or so he thought. Therefore, when the past comes for blood, you either draw first or die trying. Look for They Came for Blood on Amazon.com or anywhere books are sold. Check it out. There's a lot of murder in the book, so it's not a departure from my day job. Michael Reese is a bad human being. In fact, Reese is what we call here on Crossing the Line a bona fide scumbag of the worst type. Why he is in the community with literally no oversight and nobody watching him is beyond me. But here we are. In 2006, Reese was convicted of stabbing and sexually assaulting a woman in New Haven, Connecticut. So right there, Michael Reese tells us who he is. Shocking to me, Reese actually served 14 years in prison for that crime, though he deserved far more. For at least those 14 years, society was safe from the likes of Michael Reese. In 2020, he was released under strict parole conditions as a registered sex offender, and within no time, of course, he violated those conditions. Because look, that is what these guys do. Here we have a man who spent 14 years behind bars, and the first chance he gets, he violates the rules put in place to protect society. Reese was redetained and served another 3 years before being released again, ending up on Chapman Street in Willimantic with nobody watching over him. He's a dangerous mother, a ticking time bomb, now out in the community, being monitored mostly only by an anklet he wears, which has, we learned before the break, been tampered with and stripped off his ankle. That house he lives in, the Reach property, doesn't do much of anything to keep tabs on the guy. What could possibly go wrong? Remember, the probation department and the Reach house know what Michael Reese did in his past. Officer Gilmet cannot locate Joyce Grayson, who went over there that morning to visit with Reese. And now we have Michael Reese trying to duck out the back door and onto a bike path after having torn his ankle bracelet off, and he's admitted to the officer that he has a knife with him. Gilmet gets possession of the knife after Reese realizes that a gun is mightier than a sword. Additional officers arrive, one of whom has a canine with him. Gilmet pats him down to see if he has any other weapons. "I have a glass pipe," Reese says, as Gilmet begins searching him. How wonderful is that? A convicted, registered sex offender out on parole, smoking crack. 2 officers conducted a search back up at the dollar store with the canine moments before Gilmet took Reese into custody. Up at the dollar store, they picked up a scent, or canine track, as they call it. That track ran up the road, bypassed a connecting road to Chapman Street, and wound up back on Chapman. For a moment, the dog went west on Chapman, away from the house, but then made a U-turn and wound up on the front steps. From the front steps, the dog then made a beeline for the backyard and sauntered right up to Michael Reese. So that tells them it was Reese who had driven Joyce's vehicle to the dollar store, parked the car, and then walked back to the house on Chapman. By 4 p.m., Reese is sitting inside a cruiser and facing several charges, including possession of a glass pipe, which he uses to smoke his crack from. Another officer arrives and transports Reese down to the station house to be booked, while the others continue searching for Joyce on the property. In patting Reese down, officers found several items of great concern. Beyond that is the crack pipe and the knife. Joyce's bank card, for one, her Visa card, and also the key fob to Joyce's vehicle. Gilmet heads over to the station and sits down with Reese inside an interview room. I mean, come on, dude. Her ID, bank cards, the vehicle parked up the road, you heading out on foot with a bag and a knife. What is the deal here? Where is she? No comment, Reese says. I'm not speaking to you, and I want an attorney. Meanwhile, a search warrant comes in, allowing the Willimantic police to conduct a thorough search of that Chapman Street house. Kind of a dump inside. They walk in and begin to look around. One officer spots a door, presumably leading down into the basement, which has a padlock on it. If you've ever seen a horror film, you know that is never a good sign. Joyce's family, of course, are beside themselves, her children and husband facing what seems to be the worst news of their lives. Later, the family says that Joyce loves cooking and baking and had often contributed to area bake sales for charitable causes. She's a volunteer, always willing to raise her hand and help the community and her family any way she could. She likes camping and the beach, and Joyce and her family often took weekend trips down to Florida in the winter months. Seldom does a day pass when she is not in the company of her children and grandchildren or siblings, the family says. Joyce is a family person with an infectious smile and glowing demeanor, her family adds. She brings joy to those around her. She loves her job as a mental health nurse, and it is truly what she has been put on this earth to do. This is the wonderful, beautiful human being Willimantic police are now looking for inside that Chapman Street home, where sex offender, crack smoker Michael Reese sat around and thought about the next crime he was going to commit. They bust the lock off that padlocked door and begin to trek down into the basement. In that basement, they see another door. This one is not padlocked. They open that door, and there is Joyce. In the words of the affidavit accompanying the warrant in this case, quote, Joyce is lying supine on the floor, extremely still, covered by a blue blanket with a white, yellow pillow covering her head. She's not moving or breathing, they recognize immediately. They, of course, request additional officers, investigators, and crime scene people, and a paramedic. One officer then removes the pillow over Joyce's head, and they realize right away that Joyce is dead. Her clothing is half removed or half put back on. Her shirt, for one, is raised above her bra. Her bra, unsnapped in the back, is pushed up, and one of her breasts is exposed. She is naked from the waist down. She is bound by 2 neckties and an electrical cord. Strangely, but not all that surprising for a guy like Reese, Joyce's pants are over on one side of her body, folded up neatly. So there is the sociopath trying to say, I care. I'll fold up her pants. It is no stretch to think that a guy on parole for sexual assault and attacking a woman with a knife has sexually assaulted Joyce before killing her. As we say here, these types of sociopaths, of which I believe Michael Reese to be, generally escalate things within the scope of the crimes they commit. They certainly, and very, very rarely, de-escalate. He raped a woman, stabbed her, and she lived. This time, he was going to make sure the victim could not identify him. What would a piece of garbage like Michael Reese have to say for himself now that they had plenty of evidence to back up the theory that he had raped and killed Joyce Grayson? I'll get to that after a second break. Please subscribe to the show wherever you get your favorite podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Once a month, on the last Friday of the month, I also release a bonus episode called Shortcuts. So check those out too. They're shorter episodes, strange stories with only one ad break, which you probably like. We'll be right back. Joyce Grayson spent her life giving back, helping people. She went over to Chapman Street to help a man, and he was waiting there to violate her. The autopsy showed Joyce had been violently sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled. I don't dare say the death penalty is designed for maniacs like Michael Reese, but I guess I just did. Joyce had sustained blunt force wounds to her head, torso, and extremities, on top of her neck being basically crushed into her throat. There were additional injuries I do not need to get into, but assume the worst. One DNA profile they were able to extract after finding male and female DNA all over her body was 68 million times more likely to occur if it originated from Michael Reese. That there tells us Reese did this. No doubt about it. The science doesn't lie. At the scene, they found blood on the floor, and Reese's DNA was also part of those swabs. That blood sample with male DNA was 660 million times more likely to be Reese's than any other person on the planet. I think we get the picture. This clown did nothing to try and cover up his vicious crimes and left both saliva and blood DNA everywhere. One sample even came back as 100 billion more likely to be Reese than anyone else. I hope you get an idea how DNA works in this type of situation. This is one reason why some defense attorneys will claim DNA is not always infallible, which is BS. It's you against 1 billion other people within the population. As a math equation and comparison, that is exact science. What's more, remember I mentioned that dollar store CCTV? When they got hold of it and took a look, there he is, Michael Reese, parking Joyce's vehicle and walking out of the parking lot. The data from his anklet backed this up, on top of it. They could even pinpoint the time he raped and killed Joyce with this data. Seems as soon as she showed up near 7:30, he either confined her in that basement and kept her alive, then dumped her vehicle and came back to kill her, or he killed her and dumped the vehicle. My bet is a sociopath like Reese bound her and kept her alive for some time before he decided to kill her. The GPS from the anklet showed direct points where Reese went before and after dumping the car. And not only had he raped and killed Joyce, but Reese robbed her, taking out money with her bank cards and also buying things around town. They discovered a receipt with a 4-digit number written in Reese's handwriting on the back of it and confirmed that it was the code for Joyce's debit card. We can assume he got that code out of her before doing his business of rape and murder. I might add here that I appreciate the detailed accuracy of Connecticut State Police Detective Jared Avery's 18-page arrest warrant affidavit. I wish every report was written in such a manner. It gives us, the public, a well-documented account of how a case was investigated so we can then judge for ourselves the evidence left behind. That's important, especially in today's day of defense attorneys projecting their own narratives out into the public via the internet. Juries can decide based on facts, not speculation and toxic sludge coming out of people whose opinions mean absolutely nothing. This report goes on for several pages, using the anklet monitor as a GPS, detailing Reese's movements that day until he cut the tamper-proof gadget from his ankle and made a move to take off. There is not 1 minute throughout that day unaccounted for. That's factual information you cannot defend. It is, as they say, what it is. On December 28, 2023, with Reese now in jail, awaiting pretrial motions and court appearances, a corrections officer from the jail reaches out to one of the detectives. "I have some information about your suspect," he explains. Apparently, the CO, who had been monitoring prison phone calls, heard Reese mention some rather interesting and incriminating information. Reese was talking to a friend. The recording of the call is another piece of unimpeachable evidence. In one call, Reese says, "Looks like this is my forever home." And what interests me is what the other person he's speaking to replies. "Yeah," it's like, "Duh, shocker," the guy says. People in Reese's life expected this to happen. Why didn't the probation department in Connecticut expect this to happen and keep a closer eye on the guy? Then Reese passes the buck, justifying his horrible crimes, saying this: "Obviously, well, not obviously, it wasn't me. Drugs are bad. Basically, bro, it was a robbery gone wrong, a robbery gone accident. That's it." The evidence clearly shows and proves this to be a premeditated rape and murder. The robbery was after the fact, an afterthought. He attacked Joyce for the purpose of raping her. He killed Joyce because the last time he raped a woman, she survived and he got caught. He stole from Joyce because he could. Remember, we had this guy locked up after that attempted murder and rape, and the court decided to give him 14 years. He calls several more people and further implicates himself, and even talks about how he has decided to plead guilty and take any deal they offer him. He's done. He says this a number of times to several different people. "I'm done. I'm taking a deal. No matter what it is, doesn't matter." Not once in any of the conversations, of course, does he mention that he sexually assaulted Joyce or beat her. Just that, it was a robbery gone wrong. When Joyce's family is made aware of the details of the crimes committed against their loved one, they are obviously beyond upset and in a state of mourning and disbelief. But that then turns into justifiable anger. And they refuse to accept that this was allowed to happen. And allowed is my word, not theirs. And it is appropriate here. This murder and brutality did not have to take place. It did not have to happen. Joyce Grayson was doing her job. She should not have been in any danger whatsoever. I'll get into that, explain why, what the family does, and my other concerns about this case after one final break. You are listening to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps, a true crime podcast. If you are a longtime listener, you have heard me rage about the court system and judges and prison sentences given out by some judges all over the country, not only here in my home state, Connecticut. I have called out those who deserve to be called out. There's a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous: nothing changes if nothing changes. That saying describes the state of our judicial system here in Connecticut. But not only that judicial system, but our social services departments. And I want to include probation in there. There needs to be a complete audit of how the system has worked, because it ain't working. If a crime like the one I have covered in this episode is allowed to take place, something is broken and needs to be fixed. I'm not singling anyone out here. It's more of a collective ill ambition and fear of coming down too hard on the rights of defendants, along with laziness and complacency. It's a passive way to approach stopping crime before it happens, which we have the power to do. I realize at some point a guy like Michael Reese needs to be allowed to go out and forge a life on his own. But at the time he murdered and raped Joyce, that was not the moment in this guy's life to allow him to be left on his own. He needed someone watching his every move. Just a freaking $30 an hour security guard with Joyce or at the house when she went into what could be a dangerous situation would have stopped this crime and saved her life. When you can't offer someone like Joyce Grayson even that courtesy, you have a broken system and should be ashamed of it. Now let's get on to the reality of these people. All that BS talk from prison Reese did over the phone about he'd take any deal offered, etc. Well, he walked into court and he pled not guilty. As the court case against him proceeds and trial scheduling begins in 2024, spurred by Joyce's murder, a bill called the Passage of Protective Nurse legislation is completed by Connecticut lawmakers. A safety bill, in other words. A bit too late, but better than not doing anything in response to this horrendous crime. And here's the thing. Passing the bill was not so hard to do, was it? The new legislation mandates home care agencies to fully disclose a patient's history of violence or aggression to employees working with them and establishes funding grants for emergency tracking devices and panic buttons. I wish they included some sort of security guard service in there as well, but my guess is they want to see one more rape and murder happen before taking that next step. And the idea of funding grants in the bill, oh my God. You know what that means. Someone has to sit down, write some sort of long thesis on why its company should qualify for the grant. I guess it's a start, but still not good enough for me. In August 2025, after wasting everyone's time and taxpayer money, Reese decides he will finally plead guilty to murder. The judge quickly sentences Reese to 50 years in prison with no early release or parole. Joyce's family then sues the state of Connecticut, arguing in the lawsuit that the state failed to properly supervise Michael Reese when Joyce was visiting him. Simple, direct, factual. Boom. The state settled with the family for $2.25 million, admitting to oversight failures by the state's probation and correction departments. You think? The family also sued the company Joyce worked for and reached settlements there which are not public. That company, the family said later, guaranteed the family that changes have been made to ensure the safety of their employees. Caitlin Grayson, Joyce's daughter, who is a social worker herself, responded saying that the settlements bring the family some closure, but there is still a lot more work that needs to be done. Quote, I wake up every day and my mom isn't here. We just had Thanksgiving without her. We have birthdays coming up, Christmas coming up. A second point she made was, as a social worker or visiting nurse, you never know what you are walking into. You don't expect to go to work, visit someone, and be in the presence of danger. The courage these people have to do this work is immeasurable. This case, as you could likely reckon from my passion, is troubling to me on so many different levels. more than I usually am, simply because Joyce Grayson's murder should have been prevented. It was 2023 when she was murdered, for heaven's sakes, not 1923. Have we not learned yet that most sexual offenders of the violent nature always reoffend? It's in their DNA to hurt people. That is what they know how to do. Here was a man out and about after committing 2 terribly violent crimes already, smoking crack, and a visiting home health nurse who does not know his history is walking blindly into his diabolical trap. Joyce Grayson had been sent to Chapman Street to heal. Michael Reese was waiting there to destroy. That's it for this week. See you in 7 days with another episode of Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps. And thank you once again for your support and for listening. I am forever grateful. Be safe. Be aware. Sources for this episode include arrest warrant application by Connecticut State Police for Michael Carlos Reese. Loved Ones, Speak Out by Robert Polanski and Luke Hodges. December 2025, WFSB News. Home Healthcare Worker Safety Among Several New Laws by Mike Savino, September 30th, 2024, WVIT TV News. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinus, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.